Good evening everyone and welcome to the latest Running Channel Live. I'm going to be joined this evening by Elle Linton, who is, if you've not heard of her, go give her a follow. She is at Elle Linton. And if you aren't aware of Elle, she is a badass cyclist. She's a fitness blogger and she's a new runner. Yay! Welcome to the running family, Elle. So Elle has recently completed the Couch to 5K program. So we're going to be talking to Elle about all the things that she's learned about running since she started doing the Couch to 5K. We're going to be asking her your questions. If you have any questions for her, if you've not put them in our stories already today, then feel free to pop them in the question box and I can ask Elle your questions as a new runner, what you want to know about her journey, what it's been like for her getting on board with the Couch to 5K. I know loads of people have taken up running during lockdown, so maybe her experiences will be the same as what you've experienced if you're a new runner too, or if you just want to get sort of general tips and advice from Elle, then this is the place to be. So thank you so much to everyone who is joining us. I see you all. Hello. Thank you for all the waves, everyone. So yeah, we're just gonna wait for Elle to request to join our live and we'll get cracking with some questions. So how's everyone's day been? Does anyone else think that it's Monday? I've said it's Monday about 500 times today. It's Tuesday. It was a bank holiday yesterday. Oh no, Janie says that she's got to be teaching right now, but congrats to Elle on completing the Couch to 5K. So that's awesome. Hi everyone who's waving. So yeah, if you weren't here right at the beginning, break your leg. You've not broke today? Did you break your leg today? That's really bad. Someone else has done a 6K run this morning. That's awesome. Oh look, Elle is requesting to join. So in and we'll get cracking on asking her lots of questions. So yeah, I'm really excited. Oh, hi Elle.
Hello.
How's it going?
Not too bad. I presume you can hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
Amazing. Thanks so much for taking some time out. I know you're a really busy lady. You've been all over the place these last couple of weeks.
Oh my gosh, yes, I just got back from Amsterdam. I needed a break and it was worth it for the fact that I now have to do 2 weeks self-isolation, but it's no different to the last 6 months, so it needed to be done.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm glad you're able to have a break. And thank you so much for joining us on the running channel. As I was explaining at the start here, so Elle has just done her Couch to 5K and is a relatively new runner. But Elle, tell us about you, because you're no stranger to fitness. You are a pretty badass cyclist. You're a fitness blogger. Tell us all about Elle.
So I am a 30-something-year-old fitness professional. I basically have my roots in fitness as a studio instructor, as a personal trainer, and I've probably had a go rather at every role in fitness, going from studio instructor all the way up to manager. And have absolutely loved it, to be honest. It's opened up just a community of people that share my passion. And when you find that thing that you just love, it doesn't even feel like work. So a few years ago, 8 years ago, I also started a fitness blog. I was kind of bored of saying the same thing over and over again when someone was like, what did you do this weekend? So then I started a blog so I could just be like, read my blog. And that has kind of turned into like an online CV and just another way to share my passion of fitness and cycling and everything that I do. I probably do have a confession to make though, in that I am a beginner runner, but I'm a perpetual beginner runner in that I have been running for a long time, but I have always starting again. So that's my confession. I'm very good at being a beginner runner.
Amazing. Well, that's why we've got you on, because it's really great, you know, talking about all kinds of running stuff. That's what we do on the running channel. So it's really great to have you on from a beginner runner perspective, because as I was saying at the beginning, so many people have taken up running during this pandemic. Have you noticed that?
I have definitely noticed that. Even when I was out running myself, I saw lots of other people running, more people running than walking, to be honest, which was nice to see. It was really nice to see.
Yeah. So when did you start to get into running? You say that you sort of started a few times, but when did you start dabbling?
So I started dabbling probably quite a while ago. If I started my blog 8 years ago, then it probably was just a little bit before that. I was working in an office job. It was in sport, but it was very desk-based, and there was no real movement involved in that job. But I had a colleague, Lex, who's also on Instagram somewhere, who was very much into running. And that's how I got started. And I would run with her. I trained for a 5K and then a 10K. And then it just went on and on. Although from the very early days, I knew that I was not a long distance runner. Like, I've never wanted to run a marathon. Like, I've always said, if I say I'm going to run a marathon, then you know that something's up. So long distance is not for me. I would stick to 5 and 10K max at the moment.
Yeah. That's really interesting you say that, because actually I first came across Elle sort of in person, as it were, but virtually, when we were training like an ultra runner for a week with Tom Evans. Don't fancy an ultra then?
Do you know what though? I learned a lot, and what we learned from that week training as an ultra runner is transferable to anything that we pick up, whether it be ultra running, whether it be just running a 5K, or whether it's cycling or your fitness in general. So the things that I learned, I knew were going to be transferable anyway. For example, consistency. That was the one thing that was evident, that you need consistency. Whatever consistency looks like for you, be it running once a week, running 3 times a week, you need that baseline, that thread of consistency that goes through your training to really feel like you're making progress, making improvements, and to make it enjoyable, because that first hurdle of starting running is the part where it just feels super tough and doesn't quite feel enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you've been doing the Couch to 5K program, for example, do you find that having that consistency written down for you, you've got those run walks that you're ticking off, do you find that that motivates you to carry on?
Yeah, 100%. I think if you just have to motivate yourself to get up and go out and decide what you're going to do, and especially when it got to the point that it becomes just a non-stop run, it becomes a bit monotonous. So if you're doing that constantly, then that doesn't exactly excite you. But where you're following a plan that's already created, it's already had success, and you don't even have to think, you just have to listen and do as it says. So it says run, you run, whatever that looks like for you. It says walk, you walk, and you don't have to be like watching your watch or anything. You just go out, get it done, come back, and just feel good.
Yeah, amazing. Are there any things that you've learned being a sort of, when you've started out on running, what are the sort of mistakes that you feel like you've made that you've learned from?
So I would say my biggest learning has come down to the fact that I'm not very good at following training plans. I'm very good at starting, and finishing is my problem. And I have run, for example, I've run a race really well trained. It felt so comfortable. It felt great. It didn't feel like an effort. And I've run the same distance having not trained, and I felt how uncomfortable that feels. So I think my biggest lesson was that I will not run a distance unless I've trained for it and feel comfortable. So that's why I've ended up sticking, especially now, at 5K, because I don't want to just overcommit and do too much and make it an unpleasant experience.
Yeah, I think that's a really important lesson, isn't it? Because I think so many of us, once we get into our running, we're like, oh, well, you know, I'll just do this because it's there and my friends are doing it. And actually, you end up getting injured or bored, or, yeah, you just lose your motivation, right?
Yeah, and with the 5K distance, it can be tempting to just be like, I want to train for 5K. Okay, I'm going to just go out and run 5K and see what happens. And as sensible as that potentially does sound, it just doesn't make you feel great. So it's been really, really nice to just build up slowly and finish each run feeling like, you know, I did it, that wasn't too bad, I'm ready for the next step, as well as building into the fact that you can, you know, make it your own journey. So as much as there is a a set schedule for Couch to 5K. You can also go back at any point that you need to or want to and repeat it. So I think it's just learning to know that it's your own journey and you can make that journey whatever you need it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like from what you said at the beginning of how you sort of maybe gone into doing a bit of running and then stopped and then gone back and treated yourself like a beginner again from the beginning. So many people struggle with that because they think, oh, well, I've already done this. Like, and maybe it's pride, maybe it's not realizing that actually, you know, once you've taken a bit of a break, it does take time to get back into these things.
Yeah, it really does. And I think a lot of people beat themselves up over that. And again, like I said, it can be easy to beat yourself up over. And also, you can lose your running quite quickly. And there's nothing to be like ashamed of. Just start from where you are and enjoy the journey from where you are now. And don't even worry about where you have been, and worry a little bit about where you want to be.
Yeah.
Don't stress too much.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are so many people who maybe during lockdown didn't get to run as much as they wanted to, or you know, it's taken a back seat because, you know, your life and your school and your family and everything is now within your home. And there are lots of people who are sad that they've lost their running fitness and they're not at the stage that they were this time last year. And how have you kind of managed with your own, I guess it's not pride, that's not the word that I'm looking for, but how have you managed to kind of just put that ego, it's ego really, isn't it? How do you put that aside and just go, do you know what, crack on, this is where I'm at?
Do you know what, for the last, well, probably it's been a year, almost a year now that I finished studying, but I spent 2 years studying for my master's. And although it was part-time, it was very, very intense. And at that period of time, I really had to sit down and figure out my priorities, literally in order of priority, being that I was paying a lot for my MSc, so that I had to kind of go to the top. And then there's the priority of work. And then obviously if you've got children, your children are going to be high up there. And I just had to, there were a couple of things at the bottom of the list. And I was like, do you know what? I do not have the time to do these things. And unfortunately, in those 2 years, my own fitness came at the very bottom. I think it was the last thing that I was able to squeeze in. And I just knew that, you know what, for the long-term plan, there would be a point that I would be able to come back to my running fitness and come back to my cycling fitness. But at that time of studying, I realized that I couldn't commit to training as much as I would like to. If I trained, it would be a bonus. I was also teaching classes as well, so there was a tiny bit of fitness there. But if I trained, it was a bonus. So that was where I really made the decision that, you know, I would stop signing up to races that I couldn't train for, and I would not commit to ever running more than 5K, which was a park run distance, so that I could just like manage my own expectations of my fitness levels during those times, and knowing that it wasn't forever. And then when I did eventually finish my studies in September, I unfortunately got unwell. It probably, when I look back, was COVID, but in December time. And it knocked me out until March, this end of February, March. And I ended up going to a triathlon camp at the end of February, where I had planned on being at peak fitness and getting there and smashing out all this training. But instead, I ended up going at probably my lowest fitness levels ever, but it was that kickstart that I needed to get back into my fitness. So I don't necessarily think it was ego, but it's just sitting down and having that conversation with yourself and being realistic about, you know, what you can fit in, what you can't fit in, and what is your priority, and then using your weekly, if you have a weekly like schedule, to see what's realistic to fit in and what you can't, and maybe have like a core session. So I think during lockdown, I think I had decided I was doing Couch to 5K, so I'd do my 3 runs a week. I think I wanted to ride once or twice a week, something like that, and then anything else was a bonus. So my focus during that time was just the main sessions, and then if I managed to do a yoga class, if I managed to do a little HIIT class, then amazing. But if I didn't, do you know what? It's not the end of the world, and it's always another week. So yeah, that's my thinking.
That's really wise words. It's so useful to hear that from someone like you, and that hopefully everyone that's watching can take something away from that, because it is, it's a very personal journey, and what works for one person doesn't work for everyone. But the stuff that you've talked about there is just like basic pillars of managing our lives, right? And just not expecting too much from ourselves.
Yeah, 100%. I had to really strip it back to basics during the last few months, and it was as simple as hitting those base sessions, taking my vitamins every day, and drinking water, getting my sleep. And honestly, 2 weeks of that, and I felt on top of the world, which then means you can train more because you've got more energy and do more things. So it all kind of just works together beautifully.
Yeah, amazing. For you, what's the best thing about the Couch to 5K program?
So the best thing about the Couch to 5K program, I would say, is the basic structure, especially if you never run before and you have no idea about how to breathe, how to focus on pace, even though they don't focus on pace, but they talk you through everything. So there'll be a point where you're running, and whoever is your coach, the coach that I've used, he'll be like, this is how you breathe, or this is what your technique should feel like when you're running. You should kind of like feel like your upper body isn't moving, that kind of thing. So I think that that's been one of the major benefits. But another benefit is actually the community, and that's something that I look for in everything that I do. So there's a community on Facebook, or for UK people doing Couch to 5K. I even created my own little community. There's probably just under 20 of us, so that we could all like drop into this Facebook group and be like, hey, I did week 2, run 1 today, and it was great. And someone else would be like, I'm on week 3, run 2, and just have that accountability, just knowing that there's other people out there cheerleading for you, even though you have to go out and run on your own because of the circumstances. So yeah, the structure and the community.
That's amazing. Is the Facebook group still like available for people to join?
Yeah, it's still available. And yeah, because did I make that confession that I actually haven't finished Couch to 5K? I've got about 4 runs left, and I found the monotony of the last runs being the last 3 runs are 30 minutes, and the 3 before that 28 minutes. And I found those quite boring in comparison to the intervals. So I've ended up going back and doing like some of the interval sessions again. So I have still been running, just not quite finished. So yeah, that's confession number 2.
Do you have any running goals at the moment? Maybe it's to finish Couch to 5K.
Yeah, that's goal number 1. Goal number 2 is ideally one day when Parkrun returns. I don't think that's going to be this year, sadly, but when Parkrun returns, I'd love to hit a Parkrun PB. That would be pretty epic. And then longer term, probably much longer term, I'd also like to get a half marathon PB, because the last time, it was quite a few years ago now, that I went for a half marathon PB. I think my first half was 2:27, and then I did another half. I trained for it, and I was like, I'm going to go for 2:20. I had 2 friends running with me, Bethan and Georgina, pacing me, and I actually ended up running 2:01, which you can imagine is super frustrating. So I was that close to a sub 2, even though I was aiming for 2:20. So I've got that on my list for one day when I can commit to the training to get a sub 2 half marathon. And then my 10K PB, annoyingly, I think I got a PB in a race where I turned up and forgot to put the timing chip on my shoe. It's like, it was 2017. Who still has a race chip on your shoe? It should be like, yeah. So my Garmin and my Strava, they know that I did a PB, but sadly the race doesn't. Yeah. My goals.
That's like runner error 101, isn't it? Isn't it mad? Like, I never really thought about it before until you said, but yeah, like most races now, obviously apart from Parkrun, you do have a time, you have to put the chip on your shoe.
Yeah.
So for you, what's the best thing about running?
The best thing about running, I don't think I could choose one, but I'd say one of the best things about running is it's kind of humbling, It's it can get to the point where it feels easy, but it's very much a challenge the majority of the time. And of course, you can increase the challenge or decrease the challenge and make it as challenging as you want. But it's very much a way to just like test your fitness, work on your what's the word, commitment, maybe, work on consistency, because those things you can transfer into other areas of your life. Another thing I would say I love about running, again, in the community, like I said, that's always something that comes into everything for me. There's a community out there for everybody, and whether that's in real life or whether that's on social media, there is a community out there for someone. And my main thing I always say is, you know what, if you can't find a community that you feel a part of, make your own. And I've done that plenty of times. I worked in a athleisure, can't even say that word, brand a few years ago. And you know what, I was like, I want to start a running club. And it was the best running club because I got paid to lead the running club during my work hours. So it was less hours on the shop floor, more hours out running. That was one instance. Then there was another instance where I signed up to 10K, and knowing myself, I was like, I'm not going to train for this. How can I commit to training? And the best way to commit to training was to lead. So I started up my own little run club. I contacted Timber Yard. They're like a coffee brand in London, and they had a tiny timber yard in Shoreditch. And I was like, hey guys, would you be happy to host my little run club every week? And they were like, yeah, why the heck not? And that's what we did. So we ran from, I think, September all the way through to February. And I had to be there every week because it was my run club. And it meant that I was very well trained for the race. So yeah, if you can't find a community, don't be afraid to make your own. And again, it's the same like I did on Facebook, and I created my little Couch to 5K group. Just make your own.
That's so amazing. What I would say here at this point is that we do have a running channel Facebook community, which is super supportive. So if you are struggling to find a community, guys, do check those out, because that Facebook group honestly brings me joy every day. People are sharing like their achievements and stuff. Like it's proper overwhelming, like reading how well everyone's doing with their running. So it's so nice to be able to share everyone's stories with it, and it's so great to be able to talk to you about your running as well. If you have one piece of advice for any new runners, or maybe runners who are looking to get back into their running after a bit of a break, what would your one main piece of advice be?
My one piece of advice would be, whether you're new or coming back to running, it would be that the first step is always the hardest. And that's just a little dose of reality to know that everybody finds that first step difficult. And the more you get out there, the more that you do it, the more you implement that consistency, the easier and more comfortable it will become. So don't be afraid, because I think for me, sometimes if I haven't run in a while, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to be so hard. Like, yes, it is, but just get out there, and then the next run will hopefully be a tiny bit easier, hopefully. So yeah, the first step's always the hardest. So by all means, if you need support on that, again, reach out to a friend, reach out to someone who will go on that journey with you. And I think that works whether you are returning or starting as a very, very beginner. And then just immerse yourself in the communities around you, like soak up all the inspiration and all the knowledge, and just use that on your own journey. And remember, it is a journey. And as much as you might have a goal race, a marathon, a half marathon, a 10K, a 5K, at the end of the day, it's that journey to that start line is where it really starts, not just on the start line and all the way through till, I don't know, you decide not to run anymore.
Exactly. That's amazing. Elle, such wise words there. Thank you so, so much. And I really appreciate your time this evening chatting to us on Instagram Live as well. It's been great to catch up, and I hope your isolation isn't too boring.
No, it won't be. Don't worry, I've got plenty to do, teaching classes and always on the internet.
Amazing. Well, once you're allowed out, then I'd love to go for a run, because I know we're quite local, so I will be in touch.
And thank you for having me.
No worries. Speak to you soon. Take care.
Bye bye.